Violence against women and girls is a global public health crisis. Roughly 1 in 3 women or girls are going to be physically, sexually, or otherwise abused in their lifetime, and that figure has not changed. 15 years ago, I worked at a rape crisis center. I was saying the same statistic then, and I have to note that this crosses all religious, ethnic, cultural boundaries, all countries. And the other piece that I think it's important for us to realize that when we think about current events and civil unrest, whether it's what's going on in Syria right now, whether it's recent earthquakes, whether we're talking about Nepal or Haiti, we always have to remember that women or girls are disproportionately affected when there's that sort of civil unrest. And violence, of course, is what kind of permeates in those environments. And we also have to remember that the United States is the largest donor of bilateral aid globally. I always want to clarify, it's a very small percentage of our GDP. I think most Americans think that we give a lot of money internationally compared to our gross domestic product, but it's actually a small percentage. But regardless, we're the largest donor. That means our taxpayer dollars have enormous influence abroad. And I've seen that in having worked on USAID contracts internationally, how that money trickles down, how our government having a policy here really influences policies abroad for other governments. So I'm focusing right now on the International Violence Against Women Act because it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. It's also something that has stagnated in Congress, which frustrates me. And so I'm here to kind of ask all of us to think about ways that we can engage our Congress people to really bring attention to this issue. It took years. We finally got our Domestic Violence Against Women Act passed in the U.S. This bill enjoys a fair degree of bipartisan support. To me, it should be a no-brainer. But right now, it's stagnating in Congress. And I want to share with you what IVAL would do. Unlike Cities for CEDAW, where we can look at some real numbers and data about the gains San Francisco has made, this is still in, if this is enacted, what would IVAL do? So the first thing it would do would make permanent the Office of Global Women's Issues in the U.S. Department of State. And that's a pretty strong tacit message to other governments when we send our ambassador of global women's issues to the table. And this was an appointment that happened, that Hillary Clinton made during her time in the Department of State, and we want to see it permanently as part of Congress. As part of the U.S. Department of State. It would also target those USAID dollars, those significant dollars I was talking about, and diplomatic efforts to reduce violence against women and girls in at least 5 focal countries with high rates of gender-based violence. Right now, those aren't defined, but I have some pretty good guesses about leading contenders based upon some data. But the point is it would be a focused effort and also a coordinated effort across all of USAID's different programs. To that point, it's also going to increase the program effectiveness. So it's integrating violence against women and girls into the existing US-funded work that we're doing abroad. It's also what I really appreciate, codifying metrics. So it's actually saying, hey, India, if you want to receive this, $100 million grant from USAID to your government, we're now going to be asking for these gender-based metrics to see your progress on things like age at first marriage or number of domestic violence cases. And then the other piece is that it's going to highlight vulnerable populations, particularly violence against marginalized ethnic or religious groups, LGBT populations. We had somebody talk about that earlier. So it's really bringing into focus these groups that otherwise don't always receive a lot of aid. And then lastly, and this is the piece that I want to share with you a little bit more because it's the piece that gets me really excited, is that it would also ensure that at least 10% of our USAID is going to local grassroots organizations on the ground. And I know Jean Marie, through her work with the Global Fund for Women and my own work with the American Jewish World Service, we've actually been able to see how effective that aid is when it's actually put into the hands of people who know their own communities. It's like, let's put it into terms here. The state of California gives, the people who are doing the good work in this county who is working, for instance, with the mixed echo population, saying, you know what, the mixed echo population, you've been doing the work. Let's give you the flexibility to do the good work that you do. So that's the piece that really gets me excited, and that's why I think IVAL is so important. And this past February, I had the opportunity to travel with AJWS to India and meet groups. Oh, I guess I'm on time here, but groups like Kisle. Kisle, it organizes India's vast urban slum dwellers to collectively organize on issues that affect them. In their cases, it's issues of school, health, land rights. I heard a really moving story about how alcoholism was ravaging their community because basically people realized they could pay off the construction workers with alcohol and stiff them on their actual payment, and that facilitated all sorts of domestic violence and issues in their community. But they were actually able to collectively organize and put in protections. So if a group like that could get funded, they're also working on an issue that's near and dear to many of our hearts, which is that of equal pay for equal work. I was amazed to find out that women actually make up a sizable proportion of the construction industry in India, doing the exact same work as men in their saris, carrying these heavy concrete blocks up flights of stairs, but getting consistently paid less. So same issues, sound familiar. CDAW is addressing the same things. This is what we're seeing, and this is what it means to be able to fund these grassroots organizations to address these issues. This was a moving quote. This woman was talking about, she was a Dalit, which is the lower caste member, which India has ostensibly gotten rid of the caste system, but it's still alive and well. And she was talking about how as a domestic worker, they don't even let them use their own toilets, but they're asked to clean them. And basically, you can read the quote, it's pretty powerful. How clean would they be without us? So to have the voices at the local level amplified is really important. It also means that groups like the Women's Lawyers Collective, who are working on national domestic legislation, could get US funds to do the work that they're doing and understanding the Indian context and things that make sense for women in their country, given the caste system, given the cultural necessity to go live with your in-laws and the vulnerability that perhaps putting your spouse in jail might bring to you, but still provide some sort of protections for those women in the context of India. And then there's also this other organization which stands for MBBCDS, stands for Mohammed Bazar Backward Class Development Society. But this is an incredible girls' school out in West Bengal that is addressing early and forced child marriage. 58% of girls are married before the age of 18 in India. We know that puts them at a disproportion. They are not allowed to access their education for as long. They are at greater risk for maternal complications when they're forced into childbearing too young of age before their bodies are ready. There's a whole, and they're of course 5 times greater risk for domestic violence when they're put into that power dynamic at such a young age. I hope I can encourage you to contact your congressperson. If your Lois Capps has not signed on yet, nor has Julia Brownlee, I know that they're supportive, but there's still that next step to actually do it. But also what we really need is we need the mapping done. Well, we've done the mapping. There's some certain areas of the country where we know that key people on the House Foreign Affairs Committee who are the ones who are going to decide the vote on this. They're the ones that we really need to reach, and some of those are in Republican districts. And so if you're at all interested and motivated, I can share with you those districts around the country. We can kind of do that mapping of family and friends and see if there's people that you'd like to connect with, and we can provide those resources of what to say and who to call and how to do it. I get these updates, which is very cool. It's govtrack.us, govtrack.us. And you can follow any legislative bill, and it actually has these links. It's just like, sign up, follow this bill. So I get an announcement every month, a new co-sponsor, co-signer of this bill. I also get tracked of where it is. It also says, call your senator, call your congressperson. There's just a link right there. So it actually, it's like a one-stop shop for how to be engaged on multitudes of issues. There's probably